NATO is one step away from war with Russia. Poland is deploying around 40,000 soldiers on its borders with Belarus and Russia amid rising tensions following a Russian drone attack. The Archer self-propelled artillery system and more. Sweden has delivered a new military aid package to Ukraine worth over 800 million and has promised an additional 7 billion. Lukashenko has made a deal with Trump. The US has eased sanctions against Belarus in exchange for the release of dozens of political prisoners. And Kadyrov, due to a terminal illness, now uses a urine bag and has almost stopped governing Chechnya. New details about Dondan's actual condition. All this and more in detail right now. In the meantime, subscribe to the Ukraine Today channel and like this episode. US President's Special Envoy Keith Kellogg arrived in Kiev on Thursday for a visit. Earlier, CNN reported, citing official representatives in the US President's administration, that Keith Kellogg would be visiting Poland this week, after which he would travel to Ukraine. Kellogg was on his way to Poland, by the way, at the very moment when the Russian Federation carried out a drone attack on that country, according to an anonymous US official. This was the first instance of an armed response by NATO against Russian military targets since the start of the war in Ukraine. Poland is deploying about 40,000 soldiers on its borders with Belarus and Russia amid rising tensions following the Russian drone attack. This was reported by TVP. In turn, France and the United Kingdom are ready to send Rafale and Eurofighter fighter jets to the Republic, while the Netherlands will provide 2 Patriot air defense systems. It was expected that Poland would increase its military presence as Russian and Belarusian troops plan to begin a series of exercises today, September 12th, with some of them taking place close to the Polish border. According to Warsaw, one of the objectives of the West in 2025 may be to practice the capture of the so-called Suwałki corridor, a narrow strip connecting Poland and Lithuania, which is wedged between Belarus and Russia's Kaliningrad region. This territory has long been referred to as NATO's Achilles heel. Meanwhile, the Russian State Duma has already declared that the Russian army is ready to fight not only against Finland but also against NATO. What should Europe be preparing for? We will show and tell you about this, as well as the brilliant attack by the Ukrainian armed forces in the enemy's lair, right now in our military review.
A precise strike and the occupiers were blown apart. The main intelligence directorate of Ukraine destroyed a Russian Black Sea Fleet ship near Novorossiysk. The Ukrainian armed forces struck a ship that the Russians had put into service in 2015. Its value is about $60 million. There are only 4 such vessels in Russia, now 3 remain. In addition, agents of the Atesh movement struck an air defense plant in Tula and destroyed a communications tower. Meanwhile, in Belarus, a secret military base is being built. Construction work in the south of the country is now in full swing. The construction area is roughly equivalent to 280 football fields. Russian media report that a Russian Oreshnik missile complex may be stationed here.
The emergence of this information can be seen as part of information and psychological operations. What has been confirmed is that indeed a military base near Osipovichi, where the 465th Missile Brigade is stationed, has been modernized on the territory of the Republic of Belarus. It should be noted that 3 new hangars have indeed been built there, in which Iskander-M complexes are housed.
And while Lukashenko secretly carries out Putin's orders, Poland is completely closing its border with Belarus from the night of September 11th to 12th, including railway crossings. The country has officially taken this step because of the Russian-Belarusian exercises that begin on Friday. But in reality, of course, it's all about those very drones that were flying toward Poland, including from the territory of Belarus.
The agenda of these military exercises will be the implementation of the so-called Suwałki corridor, meaning an incursion from the territory of the Republic of Belarus with the goal of creating a land corridor that connects the Republic of Belarus with the Russian enclave of the Kaliningrad region. Therefore, such preemptive actions by the Polish side are a response to possible provocations from the Russian Federation.
And yes, Poland continues to count Kremlin drones. Let us recall that about 15 Russian UAV wrecks have been found on the country's territory. One of the drones crashed on the territory of a military base. At the same time, Putin's Geran drones were equipped with additional fuel tanks. Thanks to this, the UAVs were able to cover a distance of more than 700 kilometers. And here's what's important to note. The drones that entered Poland were not just flying anywhere, but heading toward the NATO base in Rzeszów. It's interesting, after this, will the alliance continue to just express concern for much longer?
Regarding the extra fuel tanks, I wouldn't rule out that this is actually an element of a planned provocation by the Russian side. The technical specifications of the Geran drones, their range is up to 450 kilometers. The main version currently being promoted by the Russian side is that the Geran drones were suppressed by electronic warfare systems, and Ukraine's air defense changed their course, and as a result, after deviating, they violated Polish airspace. Let me emphasize again, most of the Geran drones were launched directly from the territory of the Republic of Belarus.
In turn, the German Chancellor stated that this drone incident demonstrated the need for a significant reform of the alliance's air defense in Europe.
During the counteraction against the UAVs, F-35s were scrambled and used missiles, respectively, to destroy the Geran drones, which cost $10,000 each. The missiles cost about $1.5 million. This, accordingly, indicates NATO's unpreparedness to repel large-scale attacks either from the Russian Federation or the Republic of Belarus, even on the territory of NATO countries, using aerodynamic means of destruction.
Meanwhile, Russia continues to use the territory of Crimea for its military logistics. From the very first days of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, it has been transferring its troops to the southern front in the Kherson and Zaporizhzhia regions, using the Kerch Bridge for this purpose.
The Russian Federation fully understands the key importance of Crimea. This includes, accordingly, the infrastructure of military bases and also as a springboard for further pressure on mainland Ukraine. That is why the main objective of the Russian Federation is to hold on to the peninsula by military means.
And to fight the occupiers, the United Kingdom and Ukraine are launching joint production of interceptor drones, which will be effective in destroying Russian Shaheds and other strike UAVs.
Sweden has provided Ukraine with its 20th package of military aid, amounting to $836 million. As part of the aid package, the country will purchase 18 new Archer systems and additional 155mm ammunition worth $327 million. Thus, Ukraine will have a total of 44 such artillery systems. Ukrainian soldiers have confirmed their effectiveness against Russian targets. The package also includes additional classified systems and projects, but these will be provided directly on the battlefield. The Russian army may be in for some Swedish-Ukrainian surprises in the future. Sweden will continue to exert strong pressure on Russia until it ends this war, wrote Swedish Defense Minister Paul Johnson. Their work is impressive. Robots in service with the Ukrainian armed forces. They help save the lives of Ukrainian defenders by accessing places where humans cannot go. Caring for the lives and health of its personnel, the leadership of the Ukrainian army is increasingly deploying ground drones at the front. The Russian occupiers can only dream of such things since no one cares about their lives.
Combat, logistics, evacuation, engineering, reconnaissance. This is just a partial list of the types of ground robotic systems, or GRS. In the fourth year of the war, it's hard to imagine how Ukraine could successfully resist Russia without these machines. Previously, GRS were ineffective, but now they are truly saving the lives of Ukrainian soldiers.
You can fight for a long time, you can fight in different ways, but life, unfortunately, is very fragile and incredibly valuable. And in order not to pay a high price in the war against the enemy, we try to use drones. It's cheaper than fighting with people.
The main goal of using GRS is to preserve human life. Right now, on the front line in the gray zone, infantry movement is almost certain suicide, since this is the territory of FPV drones, which can wait for a target for days in sleep mode. GRS are excellent at delivering ammunition and supplies.
Tasks are carried out logistically along with evacuation operations. This includes delivering supplies. We work on supply runs and evacuate the wounded. With the help of these robots, we save the lives of servicemen. Even if one hits a mine, we only lose metal, not a person. They perform extremely well, 100%.
One example is the Rise Logistics UGV, which can transport up to 200 kilograms of cargo, for instance, evacuate 2 wounded soldiers. It operates at a range of 20 kilometers. That means it can pick up or deliver cargo 10 kilometers away and return to the operator. This ground drone is capable of incredible feats. It operates in tandem with an aerial drone, which serves as the eyes of the Rise.
It hit a mine and 3 wheels were blown off. Even on a single wheel, it delivered supplies to the position without any issues. So it proved itself very well in this work.
Currently, 47% of all NRC missions are logistical and evacuation tasks. About 25% are engineering tasks, such as mining and demining. Roughly 12% are combat missions, and the rest are special missions. Rice, Taran, Termite, this is far from a complete list of NRCs used on the front line. Currently, Ukraine has many specialists in this sector and is a world leader in NRC production. This is because NRCs are immediately tested on the battlefield and all shortcomings are eliminated.
The speed and ingenuity of Ukrainian engineers are impressive. Many teams quickly adapt to the needs of the front line. Some solutions are still in the early stages, but others are already showing significant potential for integration into more complex architectures. Ukraine has already established itself as a key player in combat robotics. Nikita Makushin, head of Milrem Robotics.
In just the first quarter of 2025, the Defense Procurement Agency purchased more than 8,000 robots. In total, the state plans to order 15,000 UGVs this year, which is 15 times more than last year, reducing personnel losses and accomplishing combat missions. These are tasks that Ukrainian UGVs handle excellently.
The President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, through the Deputy Special Representative of the American President for Ukraine, John Cole, presented a gift to the self-proclaimed President of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, cufflinks depicting the White House. The Belarusian dictator in turn said he would try not to remain in debt and released another group of Belarusian opposition members. 52 political prisoners successfully crossed the Lithuanian border on September 11th. The US, for its part, lifted sanctions on the Belarusian state airline Belavia and also wants to restore its embassy in Minsk. What is actually happening in the United States of America? The murder of well-known podcaster and Trump ally Charlie Kirk was broadcast live. The FBI claims they have found the weapon that was used in the shooting. It is a powerful bolt-action rifle that was found in a wooded area where the shooter had fled. Meanwhile, the captured killer of Ukrainian Irina Zarutskaya in North Carolina has already made a shocking confession about the reasons for the attack. He stated that he was on his way to a psychiatric hospital and attacked the girl because he thought she was reading his thoughts. And so far, no one knows what Trump thinks about Russia's new aggression in Europe. He continues to remain silent and avoids journalists' questions. All the details are in our international review.
A murder live on air in front of a million-strong audience of a well-known podcaster, Trump supporter, and provocateur. Charlie Kirk was shot on the evening of September 10th during his speech at a university. He later died. As for Trump, he recorded an entire 4-minute video about how much he loved and admired Kirk.
Such rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism we are witnessing in our country today, and it must stop right now. My administration will diligently find and bring to justice everyone involved in this heinous crime and any other acts of political violence that threaten our society.
Meanwhile, the Republicans are already using Charlie Kirk's death for their own purposes. The White House published a photo with the caption, "Democrats for Crime." But what does that mean?
First and foremost, we must not forget who is currently in charge at the White House. And Trump, in general, is known for his approach to radical witch hunts. And in fact, it's not just Trump, but also Musk, with whom they've had a falling out. It's obvious that they're going to try to pin this murder on the democratic forces, on representatives of the woke movement, and basically, this whole story doesn't really come as a big surprise to anyone.
Meanwhile, Poland still hasn't recovered from the unexpected visitors on the night of September 10th, when Russian drones deliberately entered its territory. Putin's goal, of course, is to blackmail the West and test the waters. But there is something even more dangerous: Russian propaganda.
Part of Polish society actually blames not Moscow for this incident, but Ukraine, which supposedly failed to shoot down the drones that were flying over their country. And after that, the Russian Federation, through its influencers and opinion leaders, began very actively promoting the narrative that supposedly it was Zelensky, together with Tusk, who started sending drones to Poland in order to, allegedly provoke negativity and a conflict with the Russian Federation. But obviously that's utter nonsense. This is just another way Russia tries to create an alternative reality.
Here's some news. A bill has been introduced in the US Congress that would end all trade between Washington and Moscow. But it's hard to believe that Trump would agree to this.
This looks more like populism and just a symbolic political move. If you look at the figures for bilateral trade between Washington and Moscow, they're at a negligible level. Therefore, such a decision would not have any real effect on the Russian economy. Here is more about political symbolism and emphasizing Washington's clear stance toward the Russian Federation.
The president of Ukraine also commented on the West's weak response to the incident with Russian drones, offering his country's assistance.
Unfortunately, as of today, Russia has not received a strong response from global leaders to what the Russians are doing. a response in the form of concrete actions. There are plenty of statements, but so far there is a shortage of real action. The Russians are testing the limits of what is possible, checking the response, observing how NATO countries' armed forces act, what they can and cannot do for now.
And Russia is doing what it does best, blaming everyone around but never itself.
Poland, because of the nighttime raid, there's a huge, downright insane scandal. Allegedly, a group of Russian drones entered the country's airspace. At the same time, Warsaw still hasn't presented any footage of Russian UAVs or their wreckage, even though the debris has already been found.
But it's so funny how, at one moment, Russian propagandists claim there are no photos of the drones, and then immediately show them.
So far, this is the supposed photo of the drone that crashed in Poland. Apparently, there's a Gerber flower on it. On the tail, you can see a number with the letter A, which isn't used in Russia for marking. So, in other words, we can assume the photo is fake.
Yeah, right, sure. And who else would use such numbering if not Russia? But here's what's interesting. Take a look at this office of Putin in the video, and now look at this office. And no, these videos were filmed at different times and are not part of the same footage. And finally, take a look at this one too. But what if I told you that these videos were not only filmed at different times, but also in different places? That's right. The Wall Street Journal reports that Putin runs the country from 3 different offices, all of which are completely identical in design, supposedly for his own safety.
The head of Chechnya, Ramzan Kadyrov, due to worsening health problems, has started to constantly use a urine bag and has stepped back from directly managing the republic. A source in the FSB administration for the Chechen Republic told Novaya Gazeta Europe. According to him, Kadyrov, who was diagnosed with pancreatic necrosis 6 years ago, cannot come to terms with his illness and the limitations it imposes. He has repeatedly ignored doctors' orders and engaged in self-treatment, which has brought him to critical situations several times. In February, there was another crisis, after which a nephrostomy was performed on him, the source told the publication. Signs of resistance to Putin's regime are increasingly emerging in Russia. One of the regions where the underground movement is active is the Republic of Bashkortostan. In addition, Bashkirs are fighting on the side of Ukraine against the Russian occupiers. Details are in our report. While watching, don't forget to like this episode and subscribe to the YouTube channel Ukraine Today.
While the Russian regime intensifies its repressions and clamps down on any manifestations of civil protest, activists are finding new ways to fight back. Some are fighting on the front lines as part of the Ukrainian armed forces, while others are carrying out dangerous work behind enemy lines, where every act of sabotage and resistance strikes a blow against Putin's system.
The underground movement is called underground for a reason. Its activities only become known to us when some action takes place.
No to war, no to war. Since the start of the full-scale war, the number of people willing to openly oppose the regime has been steadily growing. These are people with different political views and ethnic backgrounds. Russians, Belarusians, Georgians, Armenians, Chechens, Bashkirs and many others, united by a single goal, the overthrow of the Putin regime.
These are all scattered individuals connected by different threads. In some places more successfully, in others less so, they are trying to stop the system.
Russian news feeds are increasingly reporting arson attacks on military enlistment offices, sabotage of railway lines, damage to military infrastructure, and other acts of resistance. Little is known about the partisans. Some say they are actively supported by Russian volunteers, while others believe this movement is autonomous and self-contained within Russia.
There are a lot of them, yes. The underground is, in many ways, yes, quite atomized. Then that's understandable, primarily because the repression is so severe right now. Among the most well-known groups, a few can be mentioned. There is a group called Skrepik. They claimed responsibility for example, the explosion at the FSB building in Rostov-on-Don. In general, they initially started their activities in southern Russia and accordingly carried out many actions there.
Among those known to the general public is the BOK Group, the combat organization of communists. They are responsible for many acts of sabotage on the railways, the so-called rail war.
There is also a fairly well-known leader of a movement that has been recognized, I believe, as either terrorist or extremist. It's all mixed up in Russia now. Podgotovka, Vyacheslav Maltsev. He also claims that he has many partisans, and, for example, there is a rather notable story, though there is very little information about it, about the explosion at Detsky Mir near the FSB building on Lubyanka, in which a well-known, FSB officer was injured. but the details about this explosion are also unknown. The authorities started telling us that it was some kind of helium tank explosion, which of course cannot possibly explain either the destruction or the number of dead and injured.
Special attention should be paid to the movement in Bashkortostan, the Bashkir Resistance Committee.
Here the narrative unfolds with a bit more intricacy and complexity. In this particular situation, there are both significant actions involving deliberate arson and powerful explosions targeting various organizations and institutions, as well as widespread and substantial mass protests that have also vigorously erupted throughout the entire republic, for which the Russian authorities have explicitly and directly attributed blame to this very specific committee.
We should also mention the activities of the volunteers from the Bashkort company, who are fighting for Ukraine while simultaneously building up an underground movement in their home republic, which is actively expanding. In addition to the capital of the republic, Ufa, the fighters are sending their agents to the regions. There, local residents paint the unit's symbol, a letter that combines R and B, which stands for the Bashkort company. In the city of Bilibey, there are especially many of these symbols already. In this way, residents express their support and solidarity with the struggle for the freedom of Bashkortostan. Activists are warning the pro-Russian authorities that they are closer than it may seem and are urging local residents to be vigilant and cautious. According to information from the company's fighters, more and more Bashkirs are ready to stand as one to defend their native region, supporting the resistance movement within the country.
The underground persists, the underground is expanding. Another thing is, as I already said in response to the previous question, this activity does not really imply any kind of publicity. We see this clearly, we know about this work, and by and large, the various incidents that occur in the Russian Federation do not happen without the involvement of those who are operating underground, yes, and are fighting against Putin's government, against the Putin regime.
And this is only the small part of the resistance that is known. Despite the repressive system and constant surveillance, the activity of dissenters continues to grow. Even under the harshest conditions inside Russia, new centers of resistance are emerging, and the number of people willing to act against the regime is increasing.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.